we're just going to get back up and sing. So you can rise. We're going to sing this first hymn all together. It's My Soul Cries Out. The violins are going to play it through all the way, and then we're going to sing verses 1, 2, and 4 all together.
I welcome all of you here to Rockaway Mennonite Church as we who are family and friends of Bob Janzen gather here this morning to celebrate and give thanks for his remarkable life now complete, and to honor his death, to give comfort to one another in this difficult time of loss and grief, and to place ourselves in the presence of God, whose love in time and eternity knows no end. Death is so unfathomable. In life, we are surrounded by it, but it's still so outside our normal ways of engaging with and understanding our world. In a 2013 article in Psychology Today, Dr. Lawrence Samuel calls death totally un-American, which I think that's a pretty good way to describe it, because it just goes against a culture where so much is focused on and invested in the individual self and individual success. Death is just offensive to that way of thinking. With a person as loving and as loved as Bob, someone for whom relationships were so vitally important. It is truly a blessing to be able to honor his passing together like this, in community, to sit and be moved together. Let's enter this sacred moment with poise and intention, with good breath and with open hearts, and begin together in prayer. Our God, source of goodness, giver of life, we ask for your blessing on us here as we enter this sacred moment. We bring to you some difficult needs this morning and ask that you bend to us your ear and your comfort as we open our hearts in sorrow for the loss of Bob, in joy at a life well lived, and in hope that those things which separate us from you in this life will in death be overcome. Amen.
Good morning. I'm Bob's sister Kathy and my sister Liz, my brother Tom, Julia and Emily, my daughters. Jessica and Emily, my daughters, and Julia. Okay, there's the first gap. Good morning, everyone. We're going to just talk a little bit about Bob as our brother and as the uncle in the family. When we were together as a young family in the 50s, we as children couldn't have begun to imagine the past that would be open to us, and neither could our parents. The world would change dramatically, and we would change with it. Bob, the oldest, would be the first to set off in a new direction, shake off the fears of being different from the crowd, and during the turbulent 60s and 70s, embrace the principles of peace and justice through the music of that time. As a boy in school, he was a very bright student. He worked hard and excelled in math. At home, he made excellent slingshots from willow branches and elastics from the bundles of fruit baskets, hid in the grape rows with Tom, and fired green grapes at the neighborhood boys. He drove the old tractor a little too fast in the orchard, trying to knock us off, and my mom too, off the trailer, played endless games of competitive croquet, knocking our balls far out into the orchard. You wouldn't want to play slapsies with him. He had perfected the stare as you tried to figure out whether he was serious or joking. We spent many an hour after school in the orchard in the early spring picking up brush. Bob was quick. He worked hard, with many responsibilities in the greenhouse and the orchard on a struggling farm. He would make up games when we had free time, and in the winter, as the snow slid off the greenhouses in big, deep piles, we would have time races to get to the end and back. He usually won, didn't he? Yeah.
He would tease us, as most older brothers do, but was fierce in protecting us if anyone else had a go. He got his driver's license as soon as he could, but found that he had also, by default, become the family chauffeur, like it or not, mostly not. He tried teaching me to drive, as I had made our dad too nervous to instruct me, but he soon lost patience too and refused to keep teaching me. Dad and Bob were both shocked when I got my license on the first try. Kath managed to drive the car into a ditch of mud. She stuck it right up to the axles. We were trying to remember who was in the front seat with her and said, "Step on it," and we're pretty sure it was Ellie. Fortunately, it was close to home. We couldn't get the car out of the ditch at all, and Bob managed to drag it out with a tractor before our dad found out. He could keep a secret if needed. He loved listening to music. WKBW from Buffalo, New York, on the big old radio in the living room.
I'm not really sorry. When we finally got a portable radio, he ran extension cords from the house to the orchard so we could enjoy some music while we picked fruit. By 1963, he was 16 and ready to try new things. The world was changing. He tried to convince Kathy and me to use our hard-earned babysitting money and throw it in with his savings and buy a record player. Nothing doing. We needed the money for the latest beauty product, a portable hairdryer. Undeterred, he got Dad to build him a bedroom in the basement, no longer sharing with Tom. He spent hours practicing on his guitar, learning the popular folk songs of the 60s. And he was a main attraction at the Hootenannies on River Road with a gang from church. My parents despaired as his hair grew longer and he slowly but surely left their sphere of influence. He never returned to that farming life, but he always returned to us.
Over the last 3 decades, Bob and Linda were welcoming and generous to host our family for the major holidays, Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving. It included all of us sleeping over for the first decade or so, and then as we got older, it became a day-long event that included breakfast for the early birds, a big midday meal, afternoon jigsaw puzzling, walks, good conversation, and laughs. We have fond memories of Bob welcoming us with a smile and a big hug when we came through the door, his eyes twinkling. We remember his laugh and his deadpan humor when, after a joke, there would be a pause and he'd look you in the eye, and then he'd lean his head back and break out into a smile or a signature chuckle. He had a steady quality of presence. He always joined in the board games, playing to win and advising, always go for the Yahtzee, always. He didn't necessarily jump into the middle of things or draw attention to himself in conversation, but he was always paying attention, engaged and ready with a joke or a laugh. If we expressed an interest in something, he was quick to respond with more information. He knew a lot of the family history and kept in touch with extended family. It kept us close, and it meant a lot to all of us. Kathy's husband and my dad, Rod, our cousin Linda, and now our Uncle Bob. Our family was blessed to have them in our lives, and we will always cherish them. From the 50s to the present, so many changes, and yet the essence of Bob will be forever in our hearts. Thank you.
So when I saw that the Janzen girls were having a good cry, I had mine too, so I hope I got that out of the way. I met Bob in September 1982 on a school bus. I was in grade 9, he was in grade 11. I was short. Bob was shorter. I remember thinking, he must be smart. Little did we know on that day what would unfold over the next 60 years. Bob Janzen, entertainer, collaborator, musician. I met up with Bob the summer of '68 at the Looking Glass Coffee House in Selkirk on Lake Erie. Bob had already established himself as somewhat of a music icon in his hometown of Virgil. Here, jazz, that's what we called him back then, together with Al Coop, were making a name for themselves, playing the Rolling Stones' Satisfaction, the Trogs' Wild Thing, and numerous Everly Brothers songs. All I Have to Do Is Dream, Till I Kissed Her, Ebony Eyes, Wake Up Little Susie, and Love Hurts. On Bob's tribute page, Vivian Weens recalled fond memories of Al and Bob playing at our wedding more than 55 years ago. But it was here in Selkirk that Bob began achieving legendary status. That summer, the granny glasses, the long hair, the calloused fingertips, the bare feet, and of course, the beginnings of that trademark mustache. Bob was honing his guitar skills, playing Arlo Guthrie's Ellis's Restaurant, yes, the whole thing. Tom Rush's Who Do You Love, and lots of Dylan songs, usually ending the night with The Times They Are Changing. And everything did change for Bob that next summer, the summer of '69, as Brian Adams would later write about. A young woman, Linda Fast, from Boissevain, Manitoba, appeared on the Virgil scene. Bob was smitten. Was it the long blonde hair? Was it the gorgeous soprano voice? His voice, so Dylan-like. But how would those two voices blend? Bob had a plan. They married 4 months later and formed a folk duo. By the time they were married, they had relocated to Waterloo, and here they played in coffee houses around the university, especially the Missing Piece at Conrad Grebel College. A 1970s article in the Chevron, the campus newspaper, noted that part of jazz's appeal is his stage presence and his easy, relaxed manner of relating to audiences. Toronto. Toronto in the early 70s, a cheap place to live. So why not? A 5-bedroom house to rent for $200 a month, divided by 6 or 8 or more. Bob also needed to get a job. Music was not going to pay the bills, so off to Osgoode Hall to get a law degree. It was here in Toronto that Bob's music career took a dramatic shift. He was a founding member of the fledgling fluid folk group, the Rural Delivery. If you happened to drop by, or could play an instrument, or sing, you were a member. The RD played venues like churches, festivals, including Mariposa, and the well-known coffee house Fiddler's Green at the corner of Yonge and Eglinton, the very coffee house where Leon Redbone made his Canadian debut. That's true. Bob and the RD also helped form the Toronto chapter of the Sacred Harp Singers under the leadership of Shelley Posen. In 1972, the Rural Delivery was asked if they would consider playing fiddle tunes for a square dance. Of course, we said yes, even though we didn't know a single fiddle tune. But Bob had been threatening to pick up the fiddle, and now was his time. Needless to say, it was initially a painful experience for Bob, but more so for the rest of the band. For 20 years, the RD played hundreds of square dances in community centers, churches, at weddings, at festivals, and in the barn at the farm in Bellwood, where many of us had moved to, a spring highlight before the hay came in. In the early 90s, the RD retired. Bob went on to form Five on the Floor, a bluegrass gospel group, also a time when he wrote Flying with the King, a song that would earn him hundreds of dollars in royalties. Then on to Bob and his band and 20 years of Monday Jams with Lyle. Those sessions, as well as the time with Five on the Floor, would result in regular treks to Nithview Seniors Home in New Hamburg. Bob was usually in charge of creating the set list. Kissing is a Crime, More Pretty Girls Than One, Old and Gray and Only in the Way, and Give Me Just a Little More Time. All radio standards and perfect for the seniors' home. Add to this Bob's 8-year run as host of the open mic at Mariposa Folk Festival, introducing new talent in his Bob-like way, and the many times as MC of John Bergen's Hootenannies. Many of us will forever remember Bob's performance as MC at John's event this past November. Bob at his best, in spite of mounting health issues, still making new fans, still making us laugh. A year ago, after a 30-year hiatus, the Rural Delivery united, playing fiddle tunes old and new, singing songs, mostly very old, and telling stories around the kitchen table at Ed and Joanne's in Elora. Bob played his last fiddle tune with us on January 20th. Ed Harder's 80th birthday party, Quince Dillon in High D. I love you, Bob. I miss you. So, we are the Rural Delivery. And today, because all of you dropped by, so are you. We're going to sing a song that really goes back to the very early roots of the Rural Delivery. And Bob used to sing the lead, and today Al will. And Matthew and I are going to just take you through the chorus. That you've got the words in there. And we're going to sing it once through Walking in the King's Highway. There's a highway there and a way where sorrows will flee away, and the light shines bright as the day. Walking in the King's Highway. We shall see the desert as a rose, walking in the King's Highway. There'll be singing
salvation go.
Walking in the King's highway. There's a highway there and a way where sorrows will flee away, and the light shines bright as the day. Walking in the King's highway.
There no unclean thing shall pass or hear.
Walking in the King's highway.
Just the ransomed ones without one fear.
Walking in the King's highway. There's a highway there and a way where sorrows will flee away, and the light shines bright as the day. Walking in the King's highway.
And the rain shall fall upon the ground.
Walking in the King's highway.
And the springs of water shall be found.
Walking in the King's highway. There's a highway there and a way where sorrows will flee away, and the light shines bright as the day. Walking in the King's highway. There's a highway there and a way where sorrows will flee away, and the light shines bright as the day. Walking in the King's highway. Walking in the King's highway.
What the Heart Cannot Forget, a poem by Joyce Sutphin. Everything remembers something. The rock, its fiery bed, cooling and tearing into cracked pieces. The rub of watery fingers along its edge. The cloud remembers being elephant, camel, giraffe. Remembers being a veil over the face of the sun, gathering itself together for the fall. The turtle remembers the slee sliding over and under its belly, remembers legs like wings, escaping down the sand under the beaks of savage birds. The tree remembers the story of each ring, the years of drought, the floods. the way things came walking slowly toward it long ago. And the skin remembers scars. The bone aches where it was broken. The feet remember the dance, and the arms remember lifting the child. The heart remembers everything it loved and gave away, everything it lost and found again, and everyone it loved. The heart cannot forget. Everything remembers something. The tree remembers the story of each ring, the years of drought, the floods. The skin remembers its scars, and the bones ache where it was broken. The feet remember the dance, and the arms remember the feel of the child. The heart remembers everything it loved and gave away, everything it lost and found, everyone it loved. The heart does not forget.
You heard Ron reference Sacred Harp at one point. It's a style of singing that involves shape notes. This hymn that we're going to sing, What Wondrous Love Is This, was a popular one to sing. The shape notes aren't in this version, but if you know the so fa la mi so, you can sing those shape notes along. We're going to stand and sing all 4 verses.
What
What wondrous love we are in the midst of this morning. Bob was well loved and also loved well. And although he is now in important ways absent from us, that love isn't just up and gone. Love has a divine quality to it which death can't erase. In our Christian scriptures, Paul urges us to love one another because love is from God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. Death brings absence here among us, but it can't disrupt that relationship between us and God. When Jesus was asked about the resurrection, this was how he explained it. That when we read in Scripture about the God of Abraham or the God of Isaac or Jacob, it's a way of saying that those people who for us are in the past, for God they are alive. And the same is the case for our loved ones. He is God, Jesus says, not of the dead, but of the living. For to him all of them are alive. It is in life that we are actually absent from God, when we stop loving, when we're selfish or hateful. But when we do love, we transcend this earthly plane and reach into that dimension where all are alive with God. It's like a mystical experience where we get transported from created things to their creator, from some mundane activity to an experience of that timeless dimension. Bob, I think, was a bit of a mystic, and we are fortunate that he also left us a kind of scripture, his bowling reports. Not all of you will have had the chance to read these over the years, but Bob and a few other folks from Rockaway and Connected would have regular bowling nights, and Bob would write up summaries of their evenings, often as a way to try to get a few more people out. There are so many treasures in these reports, and I don't want to take too much time. Maybe someone will grace us with some further readings in the Freiwilliges later. But I'd like to share a few passages, just to recall some of Bob's amazing mind. The main characters here are Bob, who always refers to himself in the third person as Lands, for some reason, the baker, John Bergen, and David Waltner Taves, and then various other cast members also make appearances. And there are regular themes that come up. For example, the bitter dispute with Jerry Steingart, who is always scheduling men's choir rehearsals at the same time. So there's some competition there. And they usually begin with reporting who had the high score, and then they start to get meta, getting either into numerology, what that score number somehow represents, or what a high score even means, and then getting into some of the deep philosophical conversations that bowling apparently leads to. At least among these folks, or just what is happening in Bob's own mind. December 12th, 2019, Bob scored a modest 111 in the second game, which the baker praised as quite satisfying, not as a score, but for the stark beauty of its symmetry. In the third game, bowlers settled into comfortable frames that ended with quiet acceptance of the baker's dominance. Poor Lands suffered too many needless gutter balls and solitary corner pins, resulting in the baker proffering, without prompting, the well-intentioned advice that Lands should abandon his current ineffective style and adopt something to get better results. Timing can be a critical element in the emergence of an event. In a baseball game, the swing of the bat, coordinated with the delivery of the pitch, is one example. Some might recall hearing a joke which failed because of bad timing. What if Lanz, and perhaps by extrapolation, all Rockaway bowlers, or better, well-intentioned, unsuccessful people everywhere, merely suffered from bad timing? But what if bowling was the perfect mechanism for improving this timing? And what if his improved timing didn't manifest in better bowling scores, but in some other aspect of his life? Or what if it manifested in another universe? And what if there was no direct communication between the universes, but they could send a signal? And what if the signal was 111? It's such a wonderful encapsulation of Bob's brilliance and his self-deprecating humor. Or January 31st, 2019, when it's just Lanz, the baker, and Dennis Giesbrecht. The report begins with scores and how competitive Dennis and the baker were, and then continues. Lanz reflected. He knew that he lived primarily in his head, which is to say, in a world of fantasy. He understood that the narrative which a person carries internally largely determines that person's fate. The narrative which Lanz carried had never included renown as a Rockaway bowler. But he was also aware that a person could change his or her narrative. Typically, he thought this might require years of therapy. Changing the narrative would be a process. Processes take time. He wanted quick results. He knew that some recent studies of fitness suggest that short bursts of intense activity can be as effective as lengthy, boring exercise. What if a similar principle could be applied to Rockaway bowling? It was a bold hypothesis. He determined that he would change his narrative. He would become a master Rockaway bowler. He carefully mapped out a strategy. He would become competitive. He would adopt a set of exercises. He believed they would need to be secret exercises. He would acquire a mentor. He would exercise relentlessly. By Valentine's Day 2019, which is like a couple weeks later, everything would be different. Bob's internal fantasizing would often lead, by his own report, to a kind of mystical transcendence. This from January 2020, when Bob's score was apparently 101. Lanz allowed himself to wonder if scores were the only criteria by which Rockaway bowling should be measured. He considered the vagaries of humans, how some valued good relationships over all other criteria. Others considered success to be the following of all the rules. Some were no doubt enamored by the actual movements of, say, bowlers, some by the variety of reactions observed in fellow humans, and perhaps a few focused on the numbers for themselves and the patterns which emerge, regardless of size. He thought clearly many were convinced that the size of the score was the important and real criteria, and the other values should play, if anything, a very minor role. Lanz himself had committed to the high score thesis by reporting the scores as a prominent part of the bowling report. Did he thereby contribute to a single facet paradigm by which bowling, potentially a multifaceted lens, to elucidate some of the enduring questions of existence was reduced to a single dimension. And was paradigm even a proper word to use in 2020? He considered the number 101, and thus lands reasoned into an interval where time seemed no longer to be relevant. I can't help but recall Augustine's mystical ascent when speaking with his mother at Ostia. They were talking about what the eternal lives of the saints must be like when he felt his mind pulled upwards until, quote, I arrived at that which is, in the flash of a trembling glance. Then indeed, I beheld God's invisible attributes, understood through the things that have been made. But I was not able to keep my vision fixed there. Beaten back by my own weakness, I returned to my accustomed places, taking nothing with me but a loving memory and a longing for a food that I could smell but could not yet eat. Bob, may you rest in peace and love, and until we meet you there, may all our mundane activities, bowling included, be elevated with the smell of the eternal.
This is a Bob moment. My name is Dale Miskey. Arnold Snyder is on the piano, and Tim Bergen is right beside me. For the past 14 years, we've been part of Bob's band. We weren't clever enough to come up with a name, so Bob did most of the talking, so it was Bob's band. On some occasions, it would be Arnold's band, and once or twice it was Tim's band, but most of the time, what's that?
Depended where we were.
Depended where we were.
And we were also known as Bob and the other guys.
Well, yes. Whatever we did, this song kind of made it onto the set list. He liked singing it a lot.
A lot.
2, 3, 4, 1. Oh, the glory of true love is a wild and precious thing. It don't grow on old magnolias or only blossom in the spring. No, the glory of true love is it will last a whole life through. Never will go out of fashion, always will look good on you. You can climb the highest mountain, touch the moon and stars above, but Old Faithful's just a fountain compared to the glory of true love. long before I met you, darling. Lord, I thought I had it all. I could have my lunch in London and my dinner in St. Paul. I've got some friends in Albuquerque where the governor calls me up. You can give them all to Goodwill for the glory of true love. You can climb the highest mountain, touch the moon and stars above, but Old Faithful's just a fountain compared to the glory of true love. Glory, 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 glory. You can never get enough. Time alone will tell the story of the glory of true love. Glory, 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 glory. You can never get enough. Time alone will tell the story of the glory of true love.
My dad had a particular affection for the pratfall. I think he loved the surprise of it. So if any of you were concerned for me, please blame my father's influence.
Thank you all so much for coming to the celebration of life for our dad. We would like to express our sincere gratitude for everyone for your love, support, and kind words and gestures over the past few weeks. We are extremely grateful to our extended community, friends, and families. Most of you knew him as Bob. Some of you know him as Bobby, Jazz, Opa, or Bowling Philosopher Lands. He was a man of one signature mustache and many hats, mostly to protect his bald head, but also as an expression of the many characters he embodied. The lawyer, the musician, the calendar subject, the humanitarian. The joker, the mediator, the good friend, and the caring family member. He played lots of roles and connected with so many people in his life. We won't be able to capture everything, but we'll share a few of our memories and thoughts about who he was and what he meant to us. He had an analytical mind, which served him well as a lawyer in his professional life, and also made him pretty good at fixing and building things. He helped build our house in the country, just outside of Arthur. He crafted rafts for the pond and pens for the chicken raising experiment. And one year, he constructed an extremely high freestanding tree house on stilts that we loved and feared until it inevitably fell down in a windstorm. He didn't always do the greatest job, but he tackled project after project with gusto. He was an enthusiastic learner of new things and explorer of new ideas. He was an avid participant in the church sports, hockey, slow pitch, bowling, and curling, often supplying witty, dry commentary during or after the games. He and Mom got very into Tai Chi for a number of years. He branched out into Tai Chi fan, Tai Chi sword, and push hands, which he competed and won a gold medal.
He taught us to love music, and the house was filled with folk instruments and a series of borrowed pianos. Mom and Dad had shared and varied tastes. There were many Sacred Harp singing sessions with friends where us kids would try and figure out how to sing the shapes. There were square dances in barns where we would try to follow the dance steps of the caller, folk festivals where we were exposed to artists from all over the world, and Valentine's Day dance parties where friends would dress up and dance to the Pointer Sisters in the big sunken living room. In later years, there were infamous AC/DC dance parties with the grandkids. He was a performer all his life, but most famously, Hootenanny Bob became a whole personality in its own right. What started out as a host of a fundraiser grew into this deadpan, I'm not sure what to call it, alter ego, true self, character, egged on and drawn out by his dear friend John Bergen, and which ultimately defined the last couple of decades of stage and photo performance. Hootenanny Bob reveled in the absurd, bumbling through the juxtaposition of the remarkable with the inane. High art, history, architecture, politics, nothing could withstand the scrutiny of Bob's blank expression topped with a red wig.
He loved big ideas in lots of different areas. He took math and history in university before law school. We grew up with bookshelves filled with the complete works of Freud and Jung, philosophy and chaos theory, fractals and Shakespeare, Christianity and self-improvement. We watched Star Trek and Monty Python. He participated in book studies and prayer groups. He went on a number of silent and spiritual retreats. He was a seeker and was open to other faiths, cultures, and ways of life. Mom had supported him through law school, and he in turn supported her through her English degree, and then a year away at Georgian College in Orillia, where she came home on weekends. During that time, I have vague memories of him being creative with meals. In my memory, one of them looks like some sort of gray meat with a green sauce. Clearly, we lived to tell the tale. Though he practiced law for over 40 years, I've never been sure whether Dad actually loved the law. I never asked him. This past fall, as I was struggling with what to do career-wise and evaluating what I look for in work, he reflected about his own questioning in his mid-40s. During that time, he explored moving away from law and getting into mediation. He took a number of mediation courses, but ultimately continued in the law practice. I didn't ask him why he stayed in law, but I think he saw the law as the best way for him to care for people. He never liked criminal law and only represented a few people that needed someone to say, "Guilty, Your Honor." Instead, he helped people in the big moments of their lives. The shorthand for this was real estate, wills, and estates, but it really meant helping families move from one home to the next through their life stages, working through growing families, broken families, and planning for the care of loved ones, then helping people navigate what was left when a loved one was gone. The necessary paperwork was drafted, signed, sealed, and witnessed, often by our mother, but it was the time he took with the people that mattered the most. When he retired, he transferred all the wills and files to another law firm here in Kitchener. When my mom and I met with him, with that lawyer after Dad died, he remarked that every client of Dad's had nothing but positive things to say about him, and that it was unique to find that in their profession. Being a lawyer was also a wonderful asset that led to working on boards and committees. Every board needs a lawyer, after all. He was on many boards for a variety of different organizations over the years, and often ended up being the chair. Rockaway Mennonite Church, Mennonite Savings, now Kindred Credit Union, Wellington County Health Council, and the most memorable for us was International Child Care, an organization that ran health programs and a children's hospital in Haiti. Zoe, Mom, and I benefited from many working vacations in various American cities during annual meetings. Our parents went to Haiti a few times, and one year he took us to Haiti with our Oma and showed us the children's hospital, tuberculosis inoculation programs, as well as important exposure to real poverty and a reminder to try and help your fellow humans. I think that was really the expression of his faith, to care for people. While he could engage in theological discussion, philosophical discussion, he preached sermons, it was the hours he spent with the church, with the people, that demonstrated his faith and reflected his love. He cared about people and kept up relationships with family and friends. Dad spent time interviewing his Uncle Peter to record stories of their migration and early life in Canada. He called his last remaining Uncle Frank in Nova Scotia regularly to stay connected. When his cousin Linda became sick before passing away this fall, he called her all the time. He extended the kind of care to stay in touch with friends, even those that had fractured all their relationships with others. It didn't seem to matter what you had done. He still valued you. And he wanted to remain connected, even if it was years between chats. Of course, there were hard times, challenging times, uncomfortable times, but we will always remember our dad as someone who delighted in people and in life. His laugh is perhaps the most enduring of all. Everyone shared a laugh with him. At church, at school, as a friend, a family member, a community member. Perhaps you had found yourself thinking of your own experience of this, how you found yourself, first, a little confused, looking for confirmation of what you thought you heard, hidden under a wide white mustache. Then you found realization as the outside edges perked up, saw the recognition in his twinkling eyes, and finally shared the warmth of a laugh together. He found ways to welcome with laughter, to lift heaviness, to banish awkwardness, to delight in a birth, to remember a departed loved one, to recognize absurdity, to find not just contentment, but joy, and to demonstrate love. We loved him back.
We thank you all again for sharing in this morning with us. We'll have a final song and then head downstairs for fellowship and food and drink. And there will also be a freiwilliges, which is defined in the Daily Bonnet as an open mic during a Mennonite funeral when anyone can go up and lie about how well they knew the deceased. If you have something you'd like to share about Bob, just connect with Dale Miskey, who is here and he can put you on the list for that. Let us listen to this song and then move from here with hearts full and bellies soon to be as well.
Please stand, and we'll sing him out.
Jesus is our transport to the heaven on high. With his mighty wings he makes the clouds fly by. He's our trusted pilot, guides us through the lofty heights. We'll be flying homeward with the Lord on high. Lift me up, eagle's wings, I'm going flying with the King of Kings. Lift me up, eagle's wings, I'm going flying with the King of Kings. When we reach the city streets are paved with gold, pearly gates will open